I want to apologize for making your podcast unlistenable. Like, people are like, wait, why is there a trigger warning on this Space Jam podcast? Why? Who ruined the episode? And my answer is Michael Bay.
Welcome to Certain Point of View's Another Pass podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. Just go to certainpov.com.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Another Pass podcast. I'm Case Aiken, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Sam Alisea.
Hi!
And today, I am honored to be chatting with a friend of mine from my theater days. I've got David Ebert here.
Hi, guys.
Welcome!
We have come a long way since you were playing the pseudo Foley artist in an off-Broadway show. Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, I no longer do off Broadway.
Probably for the best, yeah.
Absolutely for the best. I'm Dave Ebert. I'm an actor and I'm a comedian, and in recent years I became a writer and director. And I do a lot of commercials, do a lot of TV, do all the stuff that you do. And I have kids, and I have two kids, which is why I'm qualified to talk about today's episode as both an adult and a person who viewed it with children.
That is true, because today we are talking about a movie that is definitely supposed to be targeted at kids, but as we were talking about before we started recording, I don't think any of us are really convinced that this was made for kids. I don't think any of us are really convinced who this movie was made for, because today we are talking about Space Jam 2, or as it's supposed to be called, Space Jam: A New Legacy.
It was an assignment.
Brand new legacy. Yes, that you assigned us. Thank you.
It was, I mean, in every respect, this was an assignment. Someone years ago was like, we should make another Space Jam. And every, 90s kid that was now, turning an adult was like, yeah, we need a Space Jam. But, no one was like, let's go back and watch Space Jam and evaluate if it deserves a sequel. They were just like, oh, remember it? Remember Space Jam? Remember Pogs? Let's make another Space Jam.
I never wanted, when my sister told me, because my sister actually really liked Space Jam 1, I did not like it even as a child. I was not down with it. Not my favorite movie. And so she was like, they're making another Space Jam. And I was like, why? Was my immediate response. Why? Why would you do that? That movie made no sense. Do I love animation? Yes. Did I love Looney Tunes? Absolutely. Love them. But, yeah, Space Jam, not my favorite, and didn't need to happen.
I just want to say something about Space Jam proper, like the first Space Jam, is that it could have been just, blank screened for 2 hours, and it would have done well, because it came at the emergence of the NBA as, a cultural zeitgeist thing in America. It was the same era that the NBA was shipped worldwide as a property, and it was during the Bulls' insane run, you know, that was the time that basketball turned on in people's minds, and we got Shazam and we got Steel, and I'm mentioning all Shaq properties. We got Shaq Fu.
Yeah.
Basketball. Michael Jordan actually got his own video game at the same time, the Windy City. For the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo.
Oh, no way! I have Shaq Fu for the Genesis. I didn't know Jordan also had a game.
Somehow, Shaq Fu is the better game.
It's pretty good. It's honestly, for a fighting game, it's pretty good. Shaq is the worst character in it, which is ironic. You think Shaq would be like, beef up my stats. And it's also sci-fi fantasy. There's no other basketball player in it.
Right, yeah. Either in Space Jam or Shaq Fu.
But that's the thing. At the time, they were just we were coming off the 80s, too. The 80s were all about, we don't care what we're putting in front of the kids. Sell toys. You know, they're like, it's a mutant turtle. It's a building that transforms. It's bugs that can turn into guns, you know.
They're big and they're bad. They're Beetleborgs.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is also the time where Warner Brothers actually had a Warner Brothers store.
Yeah.
Where you could go and buy every single Looney Tunes thing and Batman properties and all sorts of knickknacks, just like a Disney has Disney stores. It had a Warner Brothers store. It was a big deal.
And VHSs we've brought this up a couple of times. It is shocking how specific an era where all of a sudden you had access to these old cartoons and everything
Yeah.
Yes, like, you know, obviously it's the 80s when like with the Betamax versus VHS wars and so forth, but like we're still in that period here. Like VHS is still relatively new, or at least for the parents who are buying VHSs for their kids. And so the cultural legacy of cartoons from the 40s that have been like in serials and then like before, you know, before movie presentations and then on in syndication and so forth, is finally like, oh, we can buy it and watch it at home. And like, you know, we're all kind of in the same age bracket where like we probably watched the Warner Brothers cartoons because that was what was available, and it was like really cool to have and own in a way that was different than like the cartoons that were on at the time, which oftentimes were cashing in on that popularity, like Tiny Toons, for example.
Yeah. There was also like a huge push, like just VHS cartoons of older properties where like even Burger King like gave out Popeye VHS tapes with some meals. Like I was like, my mom was like, "Oh look, you got a Popeye cartoon," and I was like, "What?" And you'd go home and you'd watch that. I think I even got like the Mario Brothers like TV show at VHS at Burger King.
The Super Show.
Yes. Like I don't know what was up with like the end of the 90s, like the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, but this was something that they were actually doing. They were like, "Here, kid, take an old property."
That reminds me a little bit of, do you remember that phase in the 90s where like they urbanized Looney Tunes?
Yes,
and so,
yeah.
like, there was like
Yes.
big long shirts with Tweety Bird with like a blood bandana around his forehead.
Okay, so this is definitely going to date me, but I am going to admit this. I still own, and I do not know why I still own it, I still own a button-down baseball shirt with Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck dressed as Criss Cross.
I mean, that's like, I'd say in this current climate, it's a priceless artifact.
I still have that. I really. I don't know why.
Pause for a second. I might actually have it in a quilt that's like just out of my reach. Hang on a second.
Really?
That's incredible, guys. I just got to tell you that this is the equivalent of like my grandfather saved this World War II.
Oh my god!
Wait, the quilt.
Oh my god!
Oh, for listeners, it's a cool Taz. It's a cool Taz who's wearing a denim vest where the bottom is braided and has pony beads. Is that what I'm seeing?
Yep.
Yeah.
And flip flops.
It's really beautiful though because it's got like it's got flannel cuffs and he's wearing like a flannel like tied bandana and he's crossing his arms. He's gonna break dance.
I'm having
clearly.
a little trouble even identifying the specific culture of that one because that's a little bit. That's a little Harley Davidson and a little like
urban, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I don't want to dance. I don't want to beat around the bush here. When we say urban, we mean it's ripping off Tupac. It's ripping off NWA. It is specifically South Los Angeles fashion and style.
1000%.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing. The era that the original Space Jam came out in, we were all primed so hard for this particular thing that we couldn't help but like appreciate it. It was the only Looney Tunes like live action movie of that era, if you don't count Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which is only tangentially connected. It would be years before we got to Looney Tunes Back in Action, the Brendan Fraser one. So like this was like the Looney Tunes movie, and it was a movie that came out of a very successful line of commercials for Nike, using Looney Tunes characters against Michael Jordan.
That's
like
right.
This is a movie that's adapted from commercials. So already we were all like effectively commercials for Nike products somehow turned into commercials for the movie. So for like 2 years before this movie came out, we were getting geared up for it. And then they combined weird real life stuff like Michael Jordan leaving the Bulls, playing baseball, and then coming back and then fictionalizing it in the form of having him fight space invaders and getting his basketball groove back by helping Bugs Bunny.
Yeah, I don't know if this is me in rose-colored glasses, but I also think that this is the golden age of commercials because we are forced to watch them, and ads are really like ad producers working very, very hard to make them very polished.
I'm not
very
disagreeing
funny.
with you on that because I'm saying this as a person who works in the commercial industry. 90% of what I do is commercial work. And literally 40% of the industry has disappeared over the last 4 years because of streaming services and the internet.
Right.
Like, it's gone. Yeah. It's gone and it's not coming back. So I think you're right. I think that was the era where they're like, we're going to pay $3 million for a commercial, and everyone's going to have seen it.
Yeah.
And talk about it. People are going to be like, where's the beef? Got milk? Like, they're going to talk about the catchphrases in real life.
Oh my God, what's up era, that was horrible for me. What's up?
You say that was horrible for you, like, my last name
Like I'm having like flashes, like I'm going through the violent motions of remembering people just saying it in my face. Oh no.
My parents were Budweiser toads, and that was really rough for me at that time.
Yeah, well, I mean, you then have gone on to work directly for that company.
Numerous times.
Yeah.
What a life. So it seems like, okay, so if I were to summarize this, like, we're kind of getting on this already, which is basically everything that shaped and formed our version of nostalgia was actually just people trying to sell us stuff, right? It was all It was all economic, all consumer, all engineered that way. I remember, like, being in love with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I was like, what's the story behind the Turtles? And it was like, we had action figures we wanted to sell. I was like, okay, that's it. That's the thing I loved and cared so deeply about, is just a way to sell me plastic. Okay. And same thing with this. So it seems like maybe this was someone's Coke-fueled idea that then a writer was assigned to come up with a movie out of it, right? And like, maybe they were like, here's the celebrities we got for it. Now make it fit. And so the first movie was perhaps, I'm guessing, a joyless experience to assemble. And then 20 years later, they're like, we're going to do that again.
Yeah. Well, because also, like, nostalgia is in, so why not cash in on that while also highlighting all our properties, like all of them, and also tap into the nostalgia of that. Because why Austin Powers?
Why Austin?
Well, that's the thing. Nostalgia is always in. It's just what you're nostalgic for keeps on shifting.
Yeah.
And this is 25 years later. It's let's go and appreciate all the shit that was going on at the time that this first one came out, basically, which includes a lot of cultural references. Like this, so if the first one had a lot of nostalgia for probably a little bit more spread out kind of experience, because just there's only so many things that were canonized into sort of the pantheon of this is Americana. You know, like the Looney Tunes cartoons beginning in like the 30s and 40s became a thing that our parents' generation and then like the Gen Xers all sort of appreciated as being like, no, this is classic American animation. This is the bedrock of American animation. And that was still in play when Space Jam came out. And I think that they actually do a disservice by not really having kind of a discussion about how it's not as much like Bugs Bunny is more of an icon than a character in stuff these days.
Yeah.
Same for Mickey Mouse. You know, like who remembers the last time Mickey Mouse was like a major character in a property?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you should bring that up, because I agree to that subset, but the Disney Corporation has like made a lot of moves over the years to keep Mickey Mouse relevant. He's in a bunch of stuff that they make for kids still, right? Whether or not you watched it, no reason you should have. The Mickey Mouse Club is a like pre-K television show that they ran for like 3 or 4 years that has Mickey Mouse in it. And the same thing with, they made this new Mickey show that was like the Ren and Stimpy animators made it. So they're trying to age up with that crowd, right? They're trying to age a group up. Turtles do the same thing, right? Teenage Ninja Turtles, every 3 years there's a new TMNT, right? And Looney Tunes just hasn't figured it out, because I don't know how much history you know of Looney Tunes cartoons, but they tried 2011 through 2015 a new Looney Tunes show that was like basically, I think, by the way, very funny, but it was like a living room drama, like Bugs and Daffy live together.
So it's like the Odd Couple.
Kind of, yeah. But like, it was very absurd, but it was just like a buddy comedy sort of thing. And only now, just like I'm saying, like this week, Kevin Smith had a Looney Tunes shorts television program come out that's like, it kind of resets the clock pre-Chuck Avery. So it's like original Daffy, where Daffy was actually insane and not surly and grumpy. And like Bugs was a sociopath and not like, well, he was always a sociopath. But like,
yeah, he's always a sociopath.
But like when he was a sociopath without reason, when they were more animalistic in their urges and desires and less like grumpy human men.
But not like lunatics and like weird cartoon superheroes, right? Like the ones from the 2004 attempt at reviving the characters.
No. Not the suits. No, I'm talking about vintage. I'm talking about where
Right,
Daffy
no.
still has like a curvy kind of beak, you know?
Yeah.
And Daffy's like, woohoo, woohoo, woohoo.
The
And he's just
woohoo
jumping around
Daffy.
everywhere.
Yeah, that's the Daffy. who's
The
fun.
actual Daffy part about Daffy
Yeah.
Duck.
Yes. And I will say that these new cartoons, if you do get a chance to see them, are enjoyable because they don't have that much pressure, and you're able to just view them as like the same sort of plausible, impossible, surreality, comedy with violence thing that the original cartoons were.
Okay, you see, that is very fair. Like, you're a parent, you have your ear more to the ground in terms of what kind of kids media is coming
Watching
out,
it all.
as opposed to me, who is just a child trapped in an adult's body.
There's no argument from any of us on that point.
Right? No. Like, I like kids' stuff, but I want them to be able to say "fuck" in it. Like,
Right. Yeah. And me too. If my kids' stuff, the stuff my kids are watching doesn't say fuck, I put a couple in.
Re-edit it.
I just go fuck. Just every so often.
Elena of Avalor just said fuck, Dad.
That's right. But that kind of plays back to what we were talking about in the first place, which is like, who is this movie for? And my answer from having watched it with kids is like, it is for people in their 30s who are fucking idiots.
fair, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be in your 30s and also like have like be so forgiving of media where you're just like, I don't care that it is an unenjoyable slog of experience. I just enjoy seeing the references.
My experience watching this movie was that once the actual basketball game started, I couldn't pay attention anymore.
They did not build
the actual game didn't matter to me at all. The Iron Giant, King Kong, and all the swarm of Warner properties showing up. There was like that moment of like, okay, that's really fun, and like every now and then I was like kind of like tuning into who was in the background, and what weird. Someone online described it as feeling like an SNL sketch, and it's like a bit of that. Like the choice to have actors playing different actors, like Jim Carrey as the Mask. There's an Arnold Schwarzenegger knockoff as Mr. Freeze, etc., as opposed to doing like CGI characters, which would have been appropriate for the setting, made it like way more obvious that it's just like, okay, we're just trying to make you think about everything that we own.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is an ad for HBO Max.
It is a very that's exactly
Yeah.
how I viewed it. It was just reminding you, but also that was the only thing I found enjoyable about the game was picking out people in the audience, right? Like that, so
Right.
many people had that same. They're like, oh, the Hercules, or like the oh, there's Godzilla. That was it. That was because the game had no stakes because you didn't like. Okay, what does every movie with a game in it need? Right, it needs like people to overcome certain obstacles, and like LeBron had obstacles he had to overcome. He had to, like, I don't know, get on board with his kid and like forgive him or like love him for who he was, and that he didn't want the same things that LeBron wanted, and have that like moment of connection. And I guess it was so weird to me that they're also like, LeBron's thing is that he's no fun at all. I was like, that's just not what I think of LeBron James.
Right, yeah.
Like Michael Jordan, sure, Michael Jordan truly is no fun at all. But like,
Well, I'm sure it's very fun to be Michael Jordan. Just,
I don't know, man. I saw The Last Dance. It seems like it's hell on earth to be trapped in that guy's head.
that's fair. He did take that personally.
Yeah, he's gonna listen to this podcast and take it personally. He's gonna come to my house and like out podcast me.
I don't know. I feel like I could enjoy having a conversation with Michael Jordan just because, as a degenerate gambler, just like Michael Jordan, I
Please
think that
know that I did not say any of these things, Michael Jordan. Please contact Case on Twitter and leave Another Pass alone. This is in no way reflective of the opinions of the podcast, only of Case Aiken.
All that's gonna
Go
happen-
on.
Michael Jordan and I all of a sudden have beef.
That'd be
I've
amazing.
made it in a way that I never expected to in life.
All he's gonna do is he's gonna DM you to gamble. He's gonna be like, want to bet? Want to bet who's the worst gambler? How much is your house? He says to you.
He'll buy the bank that controls my mortgage, and then all of a sudden, I'll be kicked out.
personal.
Which is fair, and I would deserve it. I antagonize the beast. That's fair.
So this movie, the game has no real stakes. I don't think I really cared about what any other players are doing. you know. But I will say this is also a movie that was like, this Space Jam was so bad that it made me realize the first Space Jam was bad. It made the first one worse. You know what I mean? Like, it made me re-examine both of them and be like, oh, neither of these things are supposed to be enjoyed. And in that way, maybe that we just weren't supposed to do this.
Maybe we were the real winners all along. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying it's more like a science thing where it's like everyone asked if we could do it, no one asked if we should do it, and so we made another monster.
I feel like though, I don't think that the gameplay itself was important. I think that it was like supposed to be gags and just be comedy and just be funny. And I think that the general thing was like, and you see this a lot in like, my grandfather watches a lot of Disney property. He's 93, but that's what he watches. So unfortunately, I know a lot, even though I don't have a child. So I feel like you see like this, like where the focus for like this movie is not on the game itself, but the tension lies within the relationship between LeBron and his son. So his son has to kind of get over this idea that he's not enough, and LeBron has to, you know, kind of support him. And the rest is all comedy dressing around it. Whether or not that's good or bad, I don't know. It doesn't really matter, because I don't think the point of the game is for you to be excited about the game. I think the point of the game is the lessons we learn along the way.
Well, sure. And I think that moral between LeBron and his son is actually pretty good. Like, I think that what's going on there is strong. I think that this is a better movie than the first Space Jam, at least in terms of what the main character, like the arc that the main characters go through and where they come out of at the end. It's just that I also think that the fun in quotes details about this movie have way less of a theme to them and are just way more of like an assault on my senses. And at the end of it all, I was like, oh man, that was a lot. It was a big tableau of references, and it wasn't all it didn't feel like all part of a coherent thing. And it didn't feel like a fun romp going from set piece to set piece. It was just like everything here.
Right. And I keep using this phrase that an assignment. A lot of things felt like an assignment. Yeah. Here are your Looney Tunes. Here's the properties that you must fit the Looney Tunes into. We need to see them hit these. So here's a list. Pick the ones on this list that you want, but these are the ones we have to see and where we need to see them. And so it didn't come from like, oh, wouldn't it? Nobody was like, I'm dreaming of this scene where Bugs Bunny is in this certain place doing this certain thing, or Daffy Duck is here. It was more like, all right, what do we think could work? And where do we think it could work? And let's work it out from there. Let's solve a problem, as opposed to like, let's pursue a passion or a joy or like a thing we want to write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, that on that note, though, the fact that the first place they go after they go to like quote unquote Looney Tunes world, going to like a DC Comics world, which is infused with Warner Brothers characters, felt also like a 90s throwback, because there was like a big marketing push for like McDonald's tie-in Happy Meals that had like the Flash, or like Taz is the Flash and Batman is, or Daffy is Batman and so forth. Like there was this, like those kind of convergences had happened in the 90s, and I thought that was the callback that they were going for to begin with right there.
Yeah, I did too. I was like, oh, I think this is because, not only because, like, let's be honest, that's the other property they're pushing right now. I mean, because this is, again, in the spirit of the first Space Jam, this is one long commercial.
Yeah.
With a better storyline than the first Space Jam. But, like, literally, like, I was like, oh, yeah, because I had some of those toys from Happy Meals.
Speaking of the commercial thing, knowing that it's a commercial is not bad at all. I like whenever I have to like write a script, I try to think about like, what are my comps? What are other things that were successful in that space? And there are movies out there that are just a commercial. They're just a commercial for a kid's toy, and they're fun. They're so much fun. First thing I think of, and I thought of it while I was watching this, which is the Lego Movie. The Lego Movie couldn't be more of a commercial.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
I kept comparing it, actually, when I was watching this movie, because like that is doing the same basic thing of having so much fucking stuff to look at.
Right.
And making it work.
Right. But it's guided by a certain thesis, right? The Lego Movie is guided by a single thesis, which is everything should feel like play. It should feel like play.
Yeah.
It should feel like imagination. It should feel like kids playing with toys. So yeah, of course Batman's there, and he's with a pirate that's made out of robot parts, and he's there with a little kitten that can turn into anything. Like, that's the way a kid plays. There's no guiding philosophy behind Space Jam to make it fun. The Looney Tunes are like an afterthought. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, they're there, but like, what's their inherent nature that makes them fun? None of them were doing the stuff that they do that make them fun. I mean, they were doing bits and stuff, but like, they weren't enjoying them. You know what I mean? Like, Bugs loves fucking with Elmer. You know, like, he loves that stuff in the cartoons. He loves being a little sociopath. And here he was doing it to, like, win a game. You know, nobody was enjoying themselves. The most enjoyment that any character had being a sociopath was that, like, time one? Well, Algae Rhythm.
Yeah.
Right.
Which, by the way, Don Cheadle, they're like, Don, do whatever you want. And he was like, okay, I'm not sure if this is right. I'm going to just go for it because they don't really understand this character. And they're like, go for it. And then they kept everything he did in the movie.
I actually feel like he's the only person that understood the assignment, though. I actually liked everything he did. Like, honestly, like, he's the only person who was in the movie that I actually wanted to watch. And I loved his maniac, self-absorbed computer that had a self-esteem issue, clearly, and needed reassurance from the world and didn't get it, and then went all the way the other way. I thought that he completely understood. And he had some really great moments, including when he said really mean things to the kid and then basically fell over, not on the bench, which actually got a giggle out of me. And he was just like, okay, everybody just needs to move over, make some room so we can all sit on the bench. Uh-huh. Like, it was just like a lovely kind of switch on that. So
I should be super clear. Don Cheadle's a genius, and all that was really fun. In the edit, you should use some of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, not all of it, not everything Don Cheadle did, right? Like, he's going to give you all that stuff, and then you have an obligation to pick the most entertaining portions of that and then deliver a movie that is not 2 hours long.
Yeah, the movie is just way too long, and there's too much stuff going on for it to be as assaulting on the Simpsons.
That's what I mean by the Lego comparison, is that, like, it's like, just go do the thing that's fun. Don't spend all this time. I mean, I'm a guy that overwrites things, and there was, like, so much plot. There was so much, like, They
were making up from Space Jam 1. They were trying to make up. There is no plot. I'm sorry. The aliens don't make sense. None of that makes sense. It's bad. I rewatched it. It's bad.
Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, when they get on the planet, Toon Planet, because there's planets, and we have to explain that there's planets in this universe. I don't know why. I don't know why we need to explain that.
They weirdly are holding on to a space thing, even though it's actually now a cyberspace jam.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it is. Wow. Okay. Not necessary. And when they get to the Toon Planet and all the tunes are gone, they have to come up with this thing that's like, well, Ali G came here and convinced them to leave. Because I know that they're trying to build some sort of allegory between what happened with Bugs and the Tunes and LeBron and his son. Is that Ali G showed up and was a wedge. Yeah. Except they're not going to invest any time in that. Like, to really, like, flesh out what that was. Like, there's no moment when Granny's like, I'm sorry that I believed in Ali G. Like, that's not going to happen. You just want to see them through those properties. Okay. Just go ahead, and as soon as he rises on the planet, where is everybody? It's like, oh, we didn't have enough money to animate the whole world. Okay, whatever. I don't care what the answer is. Just move on to the next thing. Faster. We don't need 5 shots when 2 shots would work.
Yeah. I kept asking myself throughout this whole movie why the Looney Tunes are there.
Yes.
Outside of it being a sequel to Space Jam 1. Sure, he arrives there first, meets Bugs, and then he's like, we should go recruit all the important characters from different properties and form a union of this all, a Justice League, if you will, to play basketball against the algorithm. And that could have been fine by itself, but it's like weirdly guided into being a Looney Tunes thing, kind of by habit. And like that just sort of feels like more of it. Like the movie is a metaphor for itself, like to the point where LeBron even says, this is a dumb idea, when the idea of being inserted into like all these properties is presented to him seriously in a pitch meeting at the top of the movie.
Yeah. Oh, the movie totally mocks itself several times. Like there are several times where the movie's like LeBron actually makes a joke about how like sports stars should not be acting, that it's a terrible idea. Like, there are definitely lots of fourth wall breaking, which actually Bugs Bunny breaking the fourth wall makes a lot of sense, and he does that quite a few times. But, yeah, the movie is aware this is a bad idea, which might be even more insulting to the viewers.
Well, okay, so that gets into this thing that I see a lot of, and I'm an armchair quarterback here. I don't know what actually happened over there, right? But I get the sense that what you have is like people that are like, yeah, let's go meta. Let's go ahead and acknowledge these things. Except you have this stable of properties that could still be making them money. And the people that made those properties are sensitive about the properties that they made. And HBO Max, which this is just an advertisement for, needs to be in business with those people there. Or still. Like, I do work with Netflix. And part of the things that I do with Netflix is that they want to take Netflix properties and they want to promote them through comedy. But you have to be insanely careful about how you talk about the Netflix properties in relationship to comedy, because they don't want anything to come across as even remotely disparaging about their own properties. Not because they don't have a sense of humor, but because the people that made those properties are going to be like, hey, I saw the thing you posted, Netflix. What the hell? You made fun of my show. And so it's like, here's a person that wants to make funny jokes and be self-referential, and then here's the executives and lawyers at WB being like, no to most of it. You're allowed to have you're allowed to have the Matrix, but you can't show Neo and you can't show Morpheus and you can't interact with any of those characters because we're not going to pay the actor and we don't have consent or whatever. You know, like, so
yeah,
it's just like trying to make an enjoyable experience that's referential to these properties with your hands tied behind your back. No actors, right?
Yeah.
We didn't see you didn't see Daenerys Targaryen. You know, right? You don't.
No, that was Foghorn Leghorn.
Right. So you see all the things that are like unownable, right? Like you don't see.
Yeah, because how could you own a dragon? I mean, like, it's just a random dragon. Can dry it anyway. I mean, people get the reference anyway.
Yeah, because like in a world with like an infinite budget, this is the perfect time to try to break out all that like face masking kind of technology that we've been developing over the years, deep fake the shit out of it, and like put all the recognizable people. But instead, like, it's obnoxiously not those people in every scene that we have for them.
Which
like
is why
an agent leans over at one point and it's like, oh yeah, you're doing another Matrix thing. And I can tell because you've done so many Matrix things at this point. But like, you're just a guy in a suit with sunglasses right now.
So the whole montage of getting the gang together is toothless. You know what I mean? Because there's no like jokes with the actual actors or anything like that. I don't understand why they didn't just have it that the Looney Tunes were all together already. I would have done them. Now we're getting into my pitch for how I would have fixed the show. But I would have done the MacGruber thing. Go ahead and get that team of really cool characters from the universe and then have them destroyed somehow and have to use the Looney Tunes.
That's not a bad thought. I think we're all kind of close to getting into our pitch territories. Like I'm having a really hard time not going into like things that should be improved on it.
This episode is going to be shorter than this movie.
Yes, it should be. It should be, because this movie was too long. I don't know. Before we take a break and hear from some of the other great shows on this network, is there anything else that like stood out about the movie that isn't really like a fix or a thing we want to really like promote? Like, you know, I thought the animation overall looked fine. I've seen some people kind of complain about it. I thought it looked pretty good for like the style of movie that they're going for. And then the CG models, I thought overall looked pretty good. Like, yeah, I think we've learned our lesson from like the Sonic the Hedgehog fiasco. In general, there, like, the characters looked appropriately both like furry, but at the same time like their cartoon selves. Like, those overall worked really well.
I think there were a couple like smatterings of one-liners that worked pretty okay, and I think that the characters were fairly true to themselves, like in terms of like the Looney Tunes being like themselves, at least like themselves from previous Space Jams. I think they kind of made Speedy Gonzales a little more subtle, which I appreciated, a little like less heavier on the accent and the racism. And so they kind of like dulled that down, but like still had him there, like, you know, like, oh, he's, you know, just part of the universe. I actually do like that King Kong got insulted by Don Cheadle. I liked that little harumph because I just thought it was adorable. It didn't matter, but it made me chuckle. And, you know, I do also, I liked when Bugs Bunny decided to be the old timey, kind of announcer, and everything kind of went black and white. I thought that was like a cool little nod to the general used to be black and white kind of stuff. And there's we at least said a couple of positive things.
I have plenty of positive things to say about it. First of all, the King Kong reference. I would have loved if. There's a thing I always get when it's like when you reference something that's really like bad, not bad, but like because he's referencing Training Day with King Kong,
right? Yeah,
yeah. If you also have to follow it up with an explanation, if you're like, I'm talking about the man who made Ethan Hawke smoke crack in Training Day, like if you have to say it. It's like
you're kind of actually going close to where I have as part of my pitch. But
I remember I had a friend who worked at Sesame Street, and they were doing a thing about a box, like something in a box with Cookie Monster. And at one point, I think it was Zach Braff actually said, like, "What's in the box?" And it's a reference to Seven.
Yeah.
I would love if in Sesame Street they're like, like Gwyneth Paltrow's head. Like, if they had to acknowledge where their sources.
Got to be careful with those sources.
I just want to concur that the animation was great. I thought the integration with the old stuff was great, like the clips. I think the actual animation integration felt really good. I thought the animation looked expensive too. I thought like the tunes. It made me. I was like, oh, this is fun. The Toon Planet. I thought all that was really good. I also thought that the villains in this. They gave a lot more thought to them and how they would. Well, I'm talking about the bad players, the Goon Squad.
The Goon Squad, yeah.
The Goon Squad.
They built them off of the nicknames that the characters actually had, or like something like about the actual basketball players they're based on, which is more than they did in the first Space Jam. And though I wasn't so like if you're a fan of the NBA, you're kind of a fan of the Goon Squad. They like made them pretty cool, and then they like made the way they played come from their powers, and I thought that was interesting and fun.
Yeah, I thought that was fun too. I also thought that LeBron tried. I don't think that he was like. I didn't think he was like so terrible. Also, I feel like I want to go back. Well, no, I actually don't want to rewatch it. But if I did ever rewatch it, I would do a drinking game where I would take a shot every time he made a confused face. Because I think that I would have a lot of fun at the end of it because he was confused a lot of the time. Yeah.
To be fair, we all would be if we were thrust into that circumstance.
That's true. You just need one scene where LeBron loses it, where he's just like, what is happening? And just crying and screaming.
Yeah. I thought the kid was good.
The kid was a pretty good actor. Yeah. Have you seen Trainwrecked with LeBron in it? That was the Amy Schumer movie.
The Amy Schumer movie, yeah.
He's just very funny in that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because he's playing a version of LeBron James in it, and that's what's funny about it.
Yeah. But he's got like a certain amount of timing. It's it's fine. Like he shows up, he knows his lines, he delivers them okay enough.
You guys should also know that I am a fan of the NBA and I am a fan of basketball, and I am this is a controversial statement within the NBA. I'm a massive fan of LeBron James. I think he's one of the best basketball players of all time, but also one of the best humans of all time, which is a big difference from Jordan, in my opinion. And so I have a big soft spot for him. So even if he just makes the minimum effort as an actor, I'm like, God, and now you do this too, LeBron?
I actually do like him as a person, just on a fair, kind of thing. I hate basketball, specifically because I hate the sound that sneakers make on a court. So I can't watch basketball. I actually really hate that squeaking.
But what if you watch basketball without the sound?
It weirds me out. I don't know why. I feel like the sound should be there, and then I turn on the sound, and then I get upset at the sound. So I just don't watch it.
So you mute it, and then it feels weird, and then you turn back on. It's a vicious cycle right there.
Right. So it's just better for me to just stay away from basketball in general.
But I do think that one thing we just haven't said out loud is that it makes so much sense to do this with LeBron.
Oh, yeah. He's the only one
he is the modern GOAT.
Absolutely.
And that is the debate that is going on currently of like, is he truly the actual GOAT? Like, is he truly the greatest of all time, like surpassing Jordan? And there is there is conversation about that.
This movie wouldn't exist if LeBron James didn't exist, right?
Right.
He's a spiritual success. He's he's the same number. He's number 23, same number as Jordan. He's in every, like, he was, and so many beats of his story as an athlete has followed Jordan. So he's been getting those comparisons the day he entered the league, you know? So I think that it's like a completely natural comparison to make. I think they also didn't play at the same time, right? Like, when was LeBron drafted? I don't know. I think they just missed each other. So it's almost like literally like basketball reincarnation. I don't think that there's another basketball player they would have tried to do this with if LeBron never existed.
No, absolutely not. And last thing, just speaking of Jordan, I thought it was a kind of a cute joke with Michael B. Jordan. Like, I think that was appropriate. Like, you know that Michael Jordan, my nemesis,
the Michael A.
wouldn't deign to be in this movie.
Yeah.
And I'm calling you out, Michael. But Michael B. Jordan, my buddy. Michael, my buddy Jordan, absolutely would. And I think it worked really well.
Yeah, as Daffy said, they were waiting for Michael A. Jordan, and they got Michael B. Jordan instead.
I've heard other people also say it was a cute joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fine. I mean, like you knew either they were going to get A. Jordan or that they were going to make a call out to it. And I was happy with the way they handled it. Like, the fanfare, everything leading up to it, perfect. It was good.
One thing that kind of bothered me about the whole thing is that and no one's going to agree with me on this. I think they did not reference the first movie enough.
I agree.
One person's immediately going to agree with me on this.
Yeah, okay.
All right, I'm going to go way out here, and I'm going to take a shot for the fences. You should be nice to strangers.
I'm immediately going to hop up and, like, say, no, sir.
No, but because, like, I think that should have been what it was kind of predicated upon. And instead of, like, there just was a moment where he's like, oh, you want me to play in a basketball game? This sounds familiar. And Bugs, like, looks at the camera, and LeBron says, who are you talking to? Which, like, the joke kind of falls a little flat there. Like, it's like, he's talking to us, LeBron. Get on board. Like, you should also break the fourth wall. But
right. Can you break the fourth wall when you are in, like, literally an entertainment space? It's not...
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah. Like, he understands he's in the world of the cartoons that he has watched.
You know, I don't envy writing this. I will say that.
It's fair. Yeah. You don't envy it, and yet you force us to try to take another crack at the script.
That's right. That's right. Well, I will say the reason I even suggested this first place is that there's not a lot of movies that while I watch it, I start to fix it in my head. Normally, I just go, I didn't like that, or I'm like, I really like that, and then I move on with my life. I don't go, oh, why didn't they just do this? And this is one that had a lot of how they could have cleaned it up.
Well, I can't wait to hear that.
Great.
I think we should get to pitches then. But before we do, we should probably hear from one of the other great shows on our network.
Hey.
Oh, hey, Jeff.
What's going on, guys?
Oh, talking about Superman.
Oh, cool. I could talk about Superman.
I could talk some more about Superman.
We know.
I'll bet a few people would want to get in on this.
I'm down.
You know it.
That sounds like fun. I'll do it.
Cool, let's do it. We can call the show Men of Steel.
And you can find it at certainpov.com.
Or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yay.
And we're back. All right.
What an ad.
Yeah. Great stuff that we're putting out there. Amazing
Can't wait
things.
to listen, honestly.
Yeah.
Probably better than Space Jam and Space Jam 2.
The ads that we have for our network are definitely a better ad than the ad that this is for HBO Max. So let's
considerably less expensive. Considerably better
so.
ROI.
This might have been recorded on someone's iPhone.
I kind of forgot that Austin Powers existed. So, I mean, they did a good job reminding me that it did.
And now that you're bringing it up, it did make me want to go back and rewatch The Matrix.
You see? Maybe it did work on some level. This is the diabolical thing, right? Make the thing that people nostalgically want to watch. Don't worry about whether it's good or not. It doesn't matter, because it's one long commercial.
You're describing 5 Transformer movies.
True.
I mean, absolutely, right? Like, who cares? Like, write a check for Michael Bay, let him do whatever he wants to do, and then they look at the numbers coming back, they go, okay, great, write him the check again. Let's do it again.
Yeah. Blow it all up.
I don't want to bring this... All right, I'll bring it up. I'll bring it up real quick because it's one of those things that is stuck in my craw and I just can't I can't wrap my head around it. In Transformers, I want to say it's Revenge of the Fallen, or whatever. It's the first one with Mark Wahlberg in it. I watched that movie. I don't know why I watched it. It's like not a movie. I don't enjoy Michael Bay movies, and I'm certainly not going to start late in the franchise for the Transformers, but for some reason I watched it. And while I was watching it, and this was like, what, 5 years ago now, there's this scene in it where Mark Wahlberg is like, to a guy like, I'm going to arrest you because you're dating my daughter, and she's underage, and you're over it. She's 17. You're 19. And then the guy explains the Romeo and Juliet laws in Texas where they live, which is like basically like we had a pre-existing pre-juvenile relationship, which means like I was not 18 at the time that our relationship started, so we're protected under statutory rape laws in Texas. And then the guy, and this happens in the movie, right? Think.
Yep, I know what you're about to say.
Then the guy pulls out a laminated copy of the law. I'm dead serious. And holds it to the camera so that the text is legible to the camera and like lets us at home read it. I have no idea why they didn't just make the daughter 18, other than the fact that like Michael Bay was like, you know, I got into this fight about statutory rape and I'm just gonna include this in my movie. And you gotta think, like, if it's like a $250 million budget for that movie and just price per minute, you're looking at over $1 million spent to put that in that movie. Do you know what I mean? Like if you break down the per minute.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Arguably, it could have been a producer or someone who was like, "I need to be in the clear." Like, can you make sure that everyone's like, cool? That's
a much more generous way to do it. Whereas like he was like, "Fine, I'll put this in to really make it very clear." But like, god damn it, just make her 18.
Yeah.
It's so strange. Nothing like that in Space Jam: A New Legacy. I gotta say that.
No, fortunately, nothing like that.
Thank God, because, I mean, even if we're not sure if it's for children, definitely parents are letting their children watch it.
That's right.
While it doesn't have anything quite so offensive as trying to justify statutory rape, it certainly has a lot of problems that we've spent an hour talking about up until this point. So Dave, you brought this to the table. Would you like to take the first crack?
I want to apologize for making your podcast unlistenable. Like, people are like, wait, why is there a trigger warning on this Space Jam podcast? Why? Who ruined the episode? And my answer is Michael Bay.
That should always be the answer.
Yeah. If you want to know who came in and ruined this property, it was Michael Bay. Okay. What can we do to make it better? I think we're all going to say the same thing, which is like, you gotta tighten at least 40 minutes out of this runtime, right? 90 minutes should be the max runtime on something like this. It's unforgivable otherwise. And it should move and it should clip, and every single joke throughout falls flat because they're using like 4 or 5 shots when they could use one. Right? I'll use a quick example. They got to get off the Toon Planet. How are they going to do it? The way they're going to do it is Bugs Bunny takes a flag and says, "I claim this in the name of Earth," which he knows is going to make Marvin the Martian come down. So he plants that. Then he looks up to the sky, and then they hear the sound, and then they see a shadow, and then they see the ship, and then they see Marvin on the ship, and then it cuts back to Bugs, who wiggles his eyes, and then the ship comes down, and then the doors open up, and there's a bit with the doors opening up. Gee, that's so many shots. That's so many, and I'm so far ahead of it already. This movie just does that over and over and over and over again. Like, you get way ahead of it constantly. Am I right? Like, did you guys feel that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so like
almost all the callbacks that they have in this are very on the nose, and you know it's coming. Like especially on the Toon Planet, there's lots of ones where it's like, here's a famous gag we're going to reference, and then we're going to wait 5 seconds and continue to reference it or make another allusion to it.
That's it. You got to get in, you got to get out, you know? And that's what I was talking about with the plot being like really contrived and like just doing a lot of work to just explain and re-explain it. Like, all I need to know is that this is a crazy AI who's mad, you know? Like, all that, like, just, it could be way more condensed. We could just get to the fun. That's the thing. Get to the fun is the mantra, right? And that's where the Lego movie succeeds and a movie like this fails, right? The Lego movie, what makes it fun? What makes it fun is this sense of, like, a bunch of different properties and stuff just smashed together and having, like, the same sort of fun in different ways, in different manifestations. This should have felt like that. It should have been a bunch of properties mashed together in the same sort of fun. They're trying too much to homage the shooting style of certain movies instead of just like, what would be the most fun thing for a Looney Tune to do in this world? Am I wrong about it? Maybe I'm wrong about that. But because like I'm also trying to diagnose like something that has like 10 different types of problems.
Yeah.
and try to like have the clearest cut. Here's how you fix it, kind of thing.
I'm also hearing all of the like, okay, this is the only clip that we got cleared from Mad Max, and we cannot use the main guy we can't use Tom Hardy's face at all in Mad Max, and you know we're only allowed to use 7 seconds because that's all the budget we have for animation. So how can you establish Wile E. Coyote in 7 seconds? And that's the problem, is that I'm thinking about this stuff watching it, which means they like totally biffed their job. That I'm like sitting there thinking like, wow, this looks like it was really hard for them to make. So, yeah, tighten the hell out of that. And then the other thing is, like, what we were talking about, like, why are the tunes in it? Like, let tunes be tunes in a real way. Like, I'm not seeing any fun had by the tunes, like, in the gameplay even. They're, like, they, like, want to do well and they want to play well. No, they should, like, want to blow up, you know, Klay Thompson. Or what's Wetfire is his name in this? Like
right, yeah.
let's have them do those bits and play those out instead of like just play. But this was actually a problem with the first Space Jam too.
Yeah,
you know, is that the vignettes weren't actually fun. So if they're not going to be fun, at least don't abuse our time. Which the first Space Jam, which all three of us agree is a worse movie, is a shorter movie, which by virtue kind of makes it a better movie.
By the transient properties of I didn't have to watch it as long.
The best thing that came out of Space
That's
Jam.
fair, though.
What's the best thing that came out of Space Jam 1? And I don't know if you guys will agree with me on this. But
Lola Bunny, probably, in terms of like pop culture appeal.
That's kind of actually my point, is like merchandise and aesthetic.
Yeah.
Space Jam
Sure, yeah.
is an aesthetic, right? It's like, it's purple, black, neon green, mid-90s, plasticky, rubbery fun. And so that's what this movie had a chance at. Oh, and also I probably would have changed the video game stuff, because like Looney Tunes, we have like the shared cultural language of what happens in a Looney Tunes cartoon, right? But we don't have like that kind of fun with like this manufactured basketball video game. Like we kind of recognize power-ups and stuff like that, but like, is a power-up nearly as much fun as like a black hole that you can drive a train through? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the video game stuff wasn't fun.
Right. It just felt kind of overwhelming, and also not like necessarily what video games are like today.
No, right. Like,
you know, it felt like NBA Jam to a certain degree, with like the style points and so forth. Although even that's more realistic to it. Like there were a lot of just like, oh, it like here's Tron style or reboot style, like big graphical explosions and so forth. Or maybe it's like Fortnite, I guess, would be like the most like modern game that it is kind of like in terms of aesthetics.
Yeah.
But that game is not a basketball.
Well, I didn't mind the game so much, but I felt like it needed to be cleaned up a little bit, because it kind of felt like, you know, that meme where Steve Buscemi is standing there and he's like, you know, in high school closing, hello teens. It kind of just felt like he made that game for the kids, for the children's. Like, this is what the children's are interested in, right? Right? Mm-hmm. But I don't know if I necessarily minded it. I just feel like it wasn't counterbalanced enough by the Looney Tunes sight gags. Like it was really great to get like the train running someone over and going through a tunnel kind of thing. But that was so fast. That was so fast. That wasn't even like that's a traditional gag. And that was like one of many gags that they did. And it was like one of the only like super like old-timey, old-school gags that they did. They didn't even have anyone run into a wall like thinking that it was something else and it was like painted. That's old school Looney Tunes.
Yeah, it should have been a contrast of the Looney Tunes versus the video game style, so that you could have had like this weird frenetic kind of world, and then the Looney Tunes, it's like, well, but let's show the real level of frenetic detail.
Yeah. You could have even had, which would have been kind of cool, is like have them pull one of the discs through a black hole and like take it from someone else, from under someone else, right? Like Bugs always would dig into the ground and kind of pop up in places and set traps for people. So why wouldn't he do that here? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many things like Looney Tunes can break the rules of reality right? That's the whole point of them. That's why they're loony. And so you could have had them kind of do that more so in the game, like show like how they are cool just with their normal things. And honestly, like, I know guns are bad, but Yosemite Sam should have had at least a water gun. It would have been fun to have him shoot someone in the face with a water gun. You don't have to use bullets. Like, he doesn't have to, he can still be himself, you know?
Well, I'll be the one to say it. They should have made Yosemite Sam a QAnon person. They should have gone full Q with Yosemite Sam. We would have recognized it. We would have understood him. That's where they should have gone with it. Just a moment where Yosemite Sam was like, I've got an article I got a YouTube video I need to show you. Just that much.
Do you know how much your government's lying to you?
I do a lot of my own research.
I know what the goons really are.
That's all. I'm not saying make them say anything political. Just say stuff like that.
Oh man. All right, I'm gonna move us along on this one. Am I gonna anger the Q segment of your viewership? No, I just like I came here to have a loony time and not vent about the state of the world. Woo. Okay. Wait. Sorry. So Sam, if you were taking a bat at this one, where would you start in terms of your pitch?
I would definitely tighten it up. I actually would. I really liked the way it started. It's a little weird. You know, they decided that LeBron was no fun because as a child he was taught that he couldn't have fun, which is, you know, let's unpack that trauma. But, you know, I get it. And so, like, I actually liked the beginning. It was, you know, nice and kind of, like, I'd leave that alone. Yeah,
it's a callback to the first one with, like, the I Believe I Can Fly stuff. Which
exactly. And they used actually some of the older music. Like, they actually used some of the music that was, like, in the original movie. So that was actually a nice callback, you know, like, kind of like that kind of thing. Then I would basically kind of have Bugs have like one moment with one of the people that he brings back onto his team just to establish that he's sorry or whatever happened to have the tunes fall out. But then I would kind of the original Muppet movie, kind of get them all on board, just like a really fast vignette, like pulling people out. No, like lines. You can still have them in the sections, but just...
What a great reference.
Yeah, just pull them out. Just like, you know, like have one moment, him and Daffy, especially because him and Daffy generally have that, you know, the most tension, especially in the older cartoons or the newer, older cartoons. Oh my God. And then you just have them have that kind of tension, and you have Bug kind of just be like, we've got to help save this kid. Come on, Daff. And Daff can put his pride aside, and then they can get the gang together. And I just cue moving on along, or the Warner Brothers version of that, right? So just kind of have everyone come together, and then have them get with LeBron and have them kind of have a difference of opinion on what the team could be. You can still do that, but literally jump straight into the game after that. Like, cut all the rest of it. You can still have the moments of like whatever. I'll even leave after the Move It On Along Muppets vignette song. You can still leave in the Lola Bunny thing because she was essential to Space Jam 1. She was introduced there. Like, that's kind of, she's very branded. And we know that this is a reference to the Wonder Woman movie they just released. Fine, I get it. It's a commercial. You can leave that in. Everything else, cut it. Although, please do keep Paul, is his name Peter or Paul? I don't know. Basically Don Cheadle's little friend. I like him. He doesn't have to be a lot, but he is very cute, and I think that he's adorable. So I wouldn't touch too much of him, but I would definitely, like, narrow some of that stuff down, and I'd make the meeting at Warner Brothers shorter. Just cut out a couple of jokes. There's like a little too much screen time there. It's not really needed. And then just jump into the game. Make the game shorter. So pick and choose which of the moments. Like, they used the time. Actually, I didn't mind the fact that they used the time loop dude twice, only because Granny got to kind of show off later on. But make it count. Don't make that first one so long. You don't have to make it as long as you did. Like, that gag went on forever. Like,
do you think there's a law now that you have to have at least one slow-mo time scene in every movie?
there is a possibility.
It is if you're going to make a lot of Matrix references.
I mean, I'm talking about the guy on the tennis court. Or on the tennis court. What sport do they play in this?
Basketball.
The guy on the basketball
Right.
court with the time.
No, I know who you're talking about. I'm just saying, like, they wanted to play up those kind of sequences right there. But yeah, sure. Like, it's just like
they did it twice,
the
right?
Flash in Justice League and
Right.
The Flash of Justice League and Quicksilver, X-Men, and Sonic the Hedgehog. It's like they all need one where
Yeah.
it is super fast.
Yeah.
So, and to do it twice, like, I don't know if it was really needed. Like, I mean, I guess once you could show his ability, but I would cut that first one down so that you could be like, oh, he's crazy. Like, he can, like, play with time. Like, he can slow down the Roadrunner. Oh, that's crazy, And then have Granny outsmart him. That's fine because that ties in. But that first thing was too long. So I think, like, a huge overhaul of the last basketball, just the whole tournament, and just pick and choose, and then get zanier. Get zaniers.
Can I just tell you? And I'm just saying, I'm not correcting you. I'm just letting you know this. It wasn't a tournament. This is how I felt too. It was one game that lasted an hour of the movie.
It's true. You're right. And it's super long. There is no reason for this game to be that long, especially when there wasn't any zaniness. The halftime, them in the locker room, fine. You always need something to cheer you up. The Michael Jordan joke can stay, great. But the first half, just have them, have a couple of things happen with the basketball players, or one or two, have them be losing already, have a majority of them being trounced the third quarter, right? Just cut the first, after the first, they're down by 1,000 points. Just demoralize kind of thing. And then the third, and then have them come back in the fourth, which that's the extra drama, right? Right there.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Which I agree with everything you're saying. Do you think also, what did you think about LeBron's wife and other son being sucked into the game too?
I think that it upped the stakes for LeBron because his whole family would have been trapped in the game. So I don't know if I hated it completely. Like, oh crap, like now my whole family is stuck in this universe. Like, I'm not just losing out on all these thousands of people that tuned into the live stream, but like my entire family is at jeopardy. So I didn't mind that so much, but I don't know if it's absolutely 100% necessary. I don't know.
I was just saying,
I didn't like it.
You didn't like it.
I didn't like it. I thought him sucking all these people in general, I think, sort of just adds to this issue of like, well, what the fuck is Algae Rhythm's plan? Like, I get part of it is that he is just out there and crazy and like he's like mad with power and like and also uncreative on top of all of that. But
You better be careful. Algae's gonna suck you in now. Crossing a line, buddy.
Algae's gonna suck you, buddy.
Yeah.
again, I want to have beef with Algae as well. I like if at the end of this episode, I don't have one of the greatest athletes of all time and also a fictional representation of the computers at Warner Brothers hating my guts, then I have failed this episode.
That's right.
But my point is like, well, what is actually his end game? Because like, isn't he trying to create content that everyone is addicted to? If it sort of seems like he's going to destroy them or even just trap them in this space, then they're not going to work and paying money for their subscriptions to HBO Max. Like they're not consumers anymore at that point. And if there was like some sort of other thing he could do with them, like slave labor or something. So like this might be too dark in that regard. Like sure, but I actually don't know what his plan is for these people by the time you get to the end of the movie.
Yeah, I think like in general, what is unclear and you kind of have to infer is that he's just incredibly lonely because the kid does say, like Don does say, he's not a bad guy. He's just misunderstood and not appreciated and lonely. So you could argue that he's lost reason, and at that point he just wants to have company and always have the company of all of these people and have a game happen over and over again. Because one of the things he says to LeBron is, this is going to happen. We're just going to keep playing this game over and over again when I win. So you could argue that. I don't know if that's like, again, that's a very thin premise, but I think that's what they were going for. Whether or not it was conveyed well is kind of questionable. Like, there's like, it requires a certain amount of extra literacy and generosity on my part.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of work for them on that one.
Right.
So, but I think that, like, in general, that would be the only thing that I could point to, like that particular line that the kid said when he was empathizing with the machine and felt that he understood the server and they understood each other more than his father understood him.
I would classify that as English teacher levels of adding layers onto it.
Yeah, I do that a lot.
Very generous of you.
Well, but
Very
isn't that
kind.
what this movie is, though? Like a reference, a movie where the jokes are all just references is expecting you to fill in the gaps, to find it funny because of the additional context that you have.
But if that's the case,
I'm not saying it's good, but I'm just saying that that's what this movie is already doing.
no, but that's the thing, is that then the movie really took way too much time to try to explain other things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they're just like, well, I'm Algae Rhythm, and this is the reason I think that LeBron James is the only person that could be in here, and here's my plan for like they spent so much time on that. It needed a few more drafts. It needed a couple kind eyes to look at it and say,
well, here's my thought on that one.
yeah.
So you guys started to say it, and I almost got a little mad because it needs to be a tournament.
It does.
Like, it feels like it is a tournament, but it should be a tournament.
Okay.
Because you know what? If you're going to have all of these goddamn characters in this, it should be a tournament of Warner Brother properties.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Yes.
And that would have been fun.
That would have been fun. That's what
Yeah.
we want to see.
That's one part of it. The next part of it is that I think that the stakes for the Looney Tunes should be set up early on as to why they're even involved in the first place. It's not just Bugs joining up with LeBron, because it's actually the reverse in the original Space Jam. It's the Looney Tunes who reach out to Michael Jordan to help them in that scenario.
Right.
And that's why they're involved in this whole thing. Bugs being like, oh, this is a good excuse to get the band back together isn't good enough. What I'm getting at with earlier when we were talking about, well, where are the Looney Tunes in terms of like their cultural cachet, is that the argument here is that Algae Rhythm is a personification of Warner Brothers and really the soulless aspect of the sort of information-driven kind of productions that they're doing. Like, all the things that we criticize about modern media is personified in Algae Rhythm. And that aspect should be conveyed in that he is downplaying the Looney Tunes. He's separating them and sequestering them from a new audience because he doesn't think that they are profitable, and that they will drive sales. And so that he wants to push them aside, and that their intention of participating in this is to reassert themselves as an important property for Warner Brothers. And I think that then so basically what I'm saying is, first act kind of plays out about the same. I agree it should be shortened, but I think it's fine to do a recap of like LeBron's career because not everyone knows that much about LeBron. And I think it sets up a good vibe of like, oh yeah, he's moved from teams, and that's usually a big thing people criticize him for.
Yeah.
Okay, fair. I think it sets up Algae Rhythm sufficiently. Just speed up all those scenes. I don't know why it's like. I don't know why he plays like the Bugs Bunny game for the Game Boy, like aside from just trying to set up an early connection there.
And it's the only thing that they had the rights to for Game Boy.
Probably.
But sure, okay. So we set up like some of the like that there are these video game connections and so forth. But like we speed it up, we get into it. Act 1 is basically is getting LeBron there and getting to the point where Algae Rhythm is like we're going to have we're going to have a Space Jam, a cyber Space Jam. You're going to have to take on the breadth of my kingdom, which is all of Warner Brothers, and that sets up it sets up the tournament. And so the tournament should start from the halfway point. And so the first half of Act 2 is him connecting with the Looney Tunes characters and getting the band together as fast as possible so that they can get ready for this. And maybe LeBron joins up with them sort of by default, or maybe because he feels bad because he sees how desperate they are for this situation. And then the second half of Act 2 is the most of the tournament. Like and we get to see like the Goon Squad, and we get to see like, you know, we can have like DC heroes doing their shit, and we can have the Hanna-Barbera like contingent doing their shit. You know, we can set up all these things, and so we can spend some more time with it. Don't have human actors, have CG actors. Like, I think maybe like that could be the argument for the Looney Tunes from the start, which is that they're being represented as toons and not being properly updated for modern era. And so that could be the transition. You know, like that can justify the toon style earlier on, and then the update for like a more CG style once they actually agree to participate, or Algae Rhythm like agrees to have them be in that. You know, so we can set up in Act 2, we see all the teams competing against each other. We can have cool, zany scenes. But ultimately, I don't want to see that much of an individual game because it is such an assault on the senses to try to follow what the fuck's going on in this like computer video game version of basketball.
Absolutely.
And it's much easier if you're seeing little snippets and then giant scores rising, and then you move on to the next competition. And that way you can have some fun stuff with like other properties. You can make references that you want in there. Like, how fucking fun would it be to have like The Mask and like a bunch of these like kind of like what if they had like a team of just Jim Carreys, but they're CGI Jim Carreys. So like no one playing should be a human aside from LeBron. And like we would fucking adore that, or whatever they have the rights to, you know, like put some of these like weird groups together that our brains connect, but maybe like you know, and maybe for some sort of meta reason.
In my head, I'm like the cable guy Jim Carrey is on that.
I'm
team.
into it. Cable Guy, Mask, Dumb and Dumber.
And I'd have to stop and check to see who they actually own the rights for. But like, they're like clearly they own the rights to a lot of characters. You can make a lot of it work really well. And so that's Act 2. And Act 3 is when we get to inevitably the tunes after maybe some stumbling blocks where they're not doing so well. And you can have sort of the like, oh, we have to like be a bit goofier and be a bit weirder. We can have like them sort of start to embrace their toon nature. Bugs Bunny should certainly burrow through the basketball court. They should certainly paint a black circle on the backboard of one of the hoops and on another one on the other side. And so when they shoot a ball, it goes through the hole and then comes out on the other side and scores a point for them. Like they should have moments of like toon stuff going on for it. It's like, whose ball is it? You know, like do a rabbit season, duck season, but for like whose ball it is.
Wait, clarification question. Are you saying that up until this point they've been behaving in ways that they think is what Ali G would want to make money, like to try to prove their worth, and then they like lean into being traditional tunes?
No, I was saying like you could have like a warm up period in the first or in the second half of Act 2, like the first couple games that they're involved in.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're a little more restrained or something to that effect. I'm not necessarily sure how I would ramp up the sort of the big moment for it. That part might, because I do like the moment of being like, we're trying to be like you. Yeah. That was a good moment in the halftime scene.
Sure.
It was also a good realization for him too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
In the
like again,
larger thesis of.
Yeah. Again, this movie is actually better than Space Jam 1 in terms of like being a movie. So there are things that are definitely very strong in that regard. But Act 3 should be the opening of the last game. And maybe at the end of Act 2, we saw what happened to the other teams, like the ones that didn't make it to the end. And maybe they get relegated into some sort of like archival footage format, which feels like that they are trapped in this state of like living death, reliving the adventures that they had before. Like if you're no longer creating properties, like if they stopped making Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny would have hours and hours of footage that we could rewatch ad infinitum, but it will never be new footage. And maybe that's the argument there. Like they're going to be condemned to just being backlog for them to sell as part of their package. Maybe that's part of the argument, that they're, instead of being part of the creative force of it, it's just additional content that they happen to have for consumers. And I kind of think that, again, I don't really like all these people being sucked into it. It's cute to have a few of them. Like, it's cute to have, like, the announcers and so forth. Maybe have some more, like style it to look more like actual video or actual basketball coverage. kind of shots in there, but like with the weird, crazy shit. But I think that there should be a lot of people watching it and have it look just kind of like a shitty video game. Like people think it's like, wait, are they Twitch streaming? You know, or whatever service that Warner Brothers is attached to, because Twitch is Amazon.
That's really funny.
And like, you know, like be like, wait, what the fuck's going on? Because it would be, how cool would it be if the wife is like, oh my God, this is real. Like to like suddenly realize that this like that this polygonal version of her husband is actually really her husband, and trying to like get a message out to her. Like you could have some actual drama of all these people watching on their phones and watching on their devices in a way that is a little less aggressive than so much shit in the audience. And then that way you can build up to the Goon Squad actually being like legitimately strong because they fucking beat Superman. In a basketball game. Like imagine if Superman is then relegated to being just because like Superman's in danger of being the same kind of thing. Like comics are coming out still. They keep trying to make movies. Every now and then we get a cartoon that's pretty good or a TV show that's pretty good. But like Superman, like Mickey Mouse, like Bugs Bunny, is in danger of being more of a property than like an actual creative output. Like Warner Brothers makes more selling Superman shirts than they make selling Superman comics. And like that's the kind of argument that like when we're at risk of them becoming just merchandise to be sold and like not its own creative changing kind of form. And that's the fear that all these characters have. And maybe even LeBron to a certain degree has like the fear of being this like static figure in the public eye, like that he's become trapped in his own public persona.
Is that why he keeps changing teams?
Wow, I love it. Okay,
so I think like really like lean into Algae Rhythm being, like I said, the sort of the most villainous interpretation of the sort of modern corporate media machine, and lean into that. And like I said, have a tournament so you can have more things on display. Because if you want to have all these properties on display, have them fucking actually do something in the movie and not just like sit in the audience.
What? Yeah. You hit on something really good. I mean, first of all, Case, you should have gone first.
No, this is why I make him go last.
I'm not allowed to go first.
This is why I make him go last. Because he's always good. Like,
okay.
It's always good.
I mean, it would have consolidated what we talked about. Because I wouldn't have been... I was just there like, yeah, it should have been shorter. And just make it shorter. And then you have, like, specific, like, very good points. I mean, definitely, like, when I just think about the idea of, like, casting them with, like, we still... Now you hit this, like, really beautiful theme, which is, like, what you said. LeBron is a property, just like the rest of them. He's got his time. And his time is coming to a close now, right? He's only got a couple seasons to get to be in the NBA anymore. Like, logically. He can't keep playing until he's 50, right?
Which they could bring up in the pitch meeting.
Right. And, oh, my God. And yet you have these other characters that have, like, lived and in some sense died already. Like, Looney Tunes has had its chance. It's had its comeback, right? This is something that I feel like comes up in the Muppet movies, which is, like, we had our time of relevance and then a post-relevance time, you know? And then post relevance, like the Muppets movie with Jason Segel was like, oh, we used to be this really popular thing, and then the movie after that was like, well, we used to be, you know, and like that with the I'm picturing the Looney Tunes begging for their lives, basically being like, we can make bunnies, let's show them, you know, and I'm picturing this like commodification and LeBron James like realizing that like. That's something I relate to more is about like the sun is setting on his time as the dominant force in a sport. You know, if so much of Space Jam 1, what does work for me thematically was that it was about like Michael Jordan realizing that he's just got to be himself. And that's why he ultimately leaves baseball and goes back to basketball instead of acknowledging that he left the sport because his father was murdered. Which terrible.
Possibly because of his gambling debts.
Yeah, well, yes. Yeah, well, wait, is that why he left the sport, was his gambling debts?
So, I mean, obviously there's no, like, there is a true story that the audience, that we, the public will never, like, fully know for sure, but there's a lot of rumors that the reason why he was sidelined, or he was, like, basically soft ousted from the NBA because of his huge gambling issue and potentially throwing matches and so forth.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Again,
It's hard to say for sure. Again, he was also super rich, but
this is an alleged thing.
Yeah.
Also, not another pass's opinion. Only Case Aiken is spreading this.
Only Case is saying that his gambling debts were so bad that they cut him off from his main source of revenue
and murdered his father.
Oh yeah, that was part of the allegation as well.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, playing through cartoons, he realized he had to overcome that and go back to the NBA. Like, those are themes that like I care about and identify with more so than like this kind of manufactured thing with his son. Like, now you're hitting on stuff that I'm like, oh, I understand that for LeBron James. Because so much of LeBron James' identity has been defined by, like, I am the best at basketball. I'm seeking championships everywhere I go. Yeah. Well done. Case, you fixed it. The tournament idea is the idea, right? You want to see, like, 30 seconds to a minute of a match with different properties, right? You want to see what that plays out. What would it be like if you saw the Matrix characters play basketball? Yes, they can score, but do they go so far into the Matrix they can't see the net anymore? Right? Like, that's fun. That's fun. Let's do that.
What if they were playing against Agent Smiths or just agents in general?
My goodness.
And like they kept on being possessed by different ones, and like someone would get freed because that agent has moved on to a different body.
Yeah. That's so good. Or like when all the Smiths came out, like they were making all those Smiths in like the second and third movies and stuff like that. Yeah. And they're just like, too many guys on the court. You're disqualified. Right. And someone's like, that was a terrible idea to have everyone turn into Smiths. Like, comment on the properties.
What if King Kong came out there and then was every single time he tried to do anything declared out of bounds because he's so big that he can't not be out of bounds?
Yes.
What if it was King Kong and Godzilla on the same team?
Right.
Yeah, like a kaiju team.
A kaiju team.
It's a kaiju
and it's going to be like, look how great they're going to be, and they can't even fit inside the box. And so as a result, it's like declared a forfeit right off the bat.
Have the White Walkers out there and just have them legit just be great at basketball. Like, don't even make a comment on it. They're just really, they're White Walkers. They're blue. They're wearing jerseys. They take it seriously. They work on fundamentals. That's funny.
Make them like the
and then
Harlem
goes like, they're ice cold.
Yeah. Like they're just like spinning basketballs, like just like you wouldn't expect it, but they love it.
Now we're talking about a movie that I want to see,
and it's still a great commercial for all of their properties.
Think about there's a sketch I return to every couple of like maybe once a year. I go back and I watch the Chappelle sketch with Prince playing basketball,
which they reference in this.
Yes. Yeah, and it's what's so funny and enjoyable about it is seeing somebody that doesn't play basketball. He's in his full Prince attire and he's good at it, right? This is what we want to see. This is what the people want to see. This is what they want to see. Cartoons play basketball, Oh man, what a good idea. You should have written this movie.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I think that this was a movie, like when you suggested it, I was like, oh, well, I haven't heard great things about it. I'm sure we'll have something to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I just, now it's a shame because like they might make another one, but they're never gonna make a good one. You know what I mean? Unless like James Gunn comes in and is just like, or a guy like James Gunn is like, give me the ropes, let me make this. But there's just there's too much at stake. Unless they're willing to like make the world a lot smaller or something like that. Like they're like, you get the Looney Tunes and you get, when I say make the world smaller, like, that it doesn't reach across all the properties of Warner Brothers or something like that.
Yeah.
But the tournament idea is such a good idea. And then just like the stakes involved for the Looney Tunes being like, they're going to be like having the idea of this liminal space where like you're archived. It's like, what does archive means? It's like you're dead property. They're not going to make you again. There's no reboots. Right? There's no more. And they're like, what are you talking about? Everything gets rebooted. And then just give a long list of all the things that have never seen the light of day again.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, but there's a whole bunch of things that we don't reboot, and there's a good reason why we don't.
Yeah. I do know that some people were online were defending this film by saying, well, it's a kid's movie and you can't judge it because it's a kid's movie. But there are very good kids' movies that are actually a lot of fun. And also, when I saw the runtime, I was like, this is not a kid's movie because kids notoriously do not have a very long attention span.
No.
My kids got bored and just started walking in and out of the room. Like they just like found other things to do. Do you know how hard it is to bore a kid to the point where TV is no longer interesting to them? My kids sat down and started reading books, and they can't read. Neither of them can read. They're both too young for that. They're just like, it's almost like they were pretending. They're like, oh, holding upside down, be like, oh, look at the news reports here.
If I look at this, maybe he'll turn this off.
Oh, Father, you still have it on. I understand.
I was just reading stocks. Yes. Good. Yeah, because again, the best comparison you made, and I was thinking the same thing, was Lego Movie, where you're looking at this huge wealth of properties, but you have much more of a consolidated kind of viewpoint. I mean, it's the Lego version of all this, and it is a how kids play with all of it.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do a basketball movie about all these like crazy Warner properties, have it be a more
basketball movie about crazy Warner properties. When you put it that way, it makes a lot of sense. Why are we just having the Warner properties stand on the sidelines to watch a too long version of the game? All right, so what happens once you fix a movie?
We congratulate ourselves.
Do we just say it's fixed?
Yeah, we fixed it. We did it. Make that movie.
I also, like, when you were saying that you didn't like the other people being sucked into the game, I was thinking about how much this movie was like Hook. And I was like, imagine if in Hook, if, like, he shows up to the final confrontation, it's like, I have your children. And I also got your wife. And it's like, when did you get my wife? Right? He's like, I got her. And the kids are going to become pirates, and I'll kill her, I guess. And it's like not a heightening, really. It's just like, okay, all right, I guess she's there too. Yeah. Like when we talking about like it raises the stakes a little bit, I was like, was the stakes lower if it was just the kid? Like he loses the kid and he's just like, well, at least I got another kid and a wife.
He's got two other kids. I mean, he's got two spares, so
yeah. It's like, oh well, they're not stuck in the game. All right. Moving on.
Yeah, because that's personal cost versus thematic cost. Like the son has a relationship in Hook. It's like he's going to corrupt the one son. Mm-hmm. Like that all, there's stakes beyond just their well-being as a living thing.
Yeah, which is the same stakes in this one too, where it's like I'm going to corrupt your son and make him join my side. And this was Hook. We watched Hook. Yeah,
with Wreck-It Ralph.
But worse.
And a couple other films.
Except Wreck-It Ralph was allowed to acknowledge things on the internet.
Oh, that's the other thing I forgot to mention. I wanted him I wanted Algae Rhythm, who is not a very creative individual because he's just a market-driven algorithm, to acknowledge Space Jam more openly. That's what when you were referencing it before. Yes. I wanted him actually to say, we're going to do a Space Jam kind of thing. Like almost like lean into it because it's like, oh, it's time for a revival. Like you can just totally work with that kind of thing.
Yes, we crunched the numbers. We looked at the math. Now is the time that we have to make this movie.
And you guys better succeed because if you don't, we're going to have to cut loose the Looney Tunes. They're just not profitable enough for us.
Right. Here's the demographic of people that can watch this movie. If we make it 2 years from now, they're going to be too old. And kids this age won't understand it anymore. Look, this is the Brendan Fraser cutoff. This is when kids don't recognize Brendan Fraser anymore.
Perfect. Yes, exactly.
Wow.
There's that cutoff definitely applies here.
Absolutely.
Well, David, thank you for bringing this movie. I like I was saying before we got started, I figured I would watch this movie. I just didn't have any strong motivating force for it, so I'm glad I watched it.
I'm sorry. I feel like you probably would have picked something good, something classic, and instead I forced you to watch consumerist schlock.
No, honestly, we don't very often watch really good stuff, so this is fine. I had no plans of watching this film, and now I have. So
you didn't like the first one, and now you also got a chance to not like the second one.
Yeah, you know what though? I have to say that I found this one. I'm gonna be generous with it. I found this one more enjoyable than my experience with the first one, because I feel like they tried. I felt like they tried. I don't feel like they succeeded, but I feel like there were a few more themes that I connected to in this film.
I feel like they is too broad. People in this movie tried. LeBron tried in a way that Michael Jordan didn't. But
You guys are bringing up something that like, and I know that we should end this because now we are getting into the territory of being as long as the movie, which is unforgivable.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
But there's a thing that people say that bothers me a lot, which is like, any movie is good because it's hard to make movies, right? Like, and everything is good in that it's an accomplishment that it was made at all. And I hate, and that makes me so mad as a critique. And maybe
I'm definitely not saying that.
I'm going to be the only guy to say this, that I don't like that critique. I know you guys like that critique, and it's just going to be me that says this. But it bothers me so much because I want to yell at them and be like, it's actually not that hard to make a movie. Studios need movies made, and they will give money to somebody to make a movie. And so, like, they will continue to make them regardless of whether or not they're good. And so it's a really frustrating thing when people are like, well, it's an A for effort. I'm like, yeah, but it's an F for enjoyable to watch. And an F is an F as far as I don't watch that and I go, wow, this looks like a lot of work. I've enjoyed it because of that.
No, but I did have moments of enjoyment within this film, personally.
Sure.
And which I did not have with Space Jam 1.
Well, I want to go ahead and say on the record that I didn't enjoy a single part of this movie, and it was a chore to watch, and I wish I just hadn't.
And then you were like, emailed us, you were like, I just saw this. Let's do this one.
Yeah, I figured that. I figure you get more out of a movie you don't like than something you do. And I'm also saying this as a massive fan of both LeBron James and the Looney Tunes. I love all their other work.
Yes, A for effort for all the work of Bugs Bunny.
That's right.
And for LeBron. A for effort.
Case, did you like this movie at all?
Like I said, I'm glad that I actually did see it, because I know I would have this sort of like weird gap after the fact of being like, I wonder what that movie was actually like, because I heard a lot of stuff, kind of vibes. So I'm glad I actually saw it and had like a reaction to it. Like I said, I was kind of pained by some of the everything. Like I keep saying assault on my senses because it was. It was in a lot of ways. Particularly the actual basketball game was difficult to watch.
Yeah,
but like I said, I'm glad I saw it, and that closed the question mark that was in my head about what this movie was like. Did I really enjoy it? No. Would I really recommend it? No.
I'm not recommending it.
No, absolutely.
But I think we can maybe put that on the marquee. It closes a question mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there are more enjoyable things that people can watch that you've been involved in, Dave. Why don't you talk a little bit about it, what you do, what you've got going on?
I mean, I can plug them, but they're not better. No.
Like, even your worst Lime-A-Rita commercial was better than this.
Wow, thank you so much. I have been in worse things. So, what can I plug? Well, I make a thing for Netflix called Netflix by Bots, which is a bot-generated versions of movies and TV shows, and the most recent one that we did is a Netflix by Bots stand-up special, which currently is circulating on TikTok because people are saying that it was actually created by bots, and I don't want to dispel the rumor, but there's a lot of human involvement. And so the concept is that they are written, animated, and performed by bots. So you could find that on Netflix as a Joke on YouTube or on Netflix as a Joke social media accounts. So that's the big thing I guess I want to... Yep, that's it. That's all I'm going to plug right now.
All right, fair. If people wanted to find you or follow you on social media, do you have anything you want to plug there?
Would love for them to follow me on social media to get all the Dave Ebert news, but mostly just bad jokes on Twitter. On Twitter, I'm at Horse Divorce, which is a play on hors d'oeuvres. And on Instagram, I'm David C. Ebert. If you want a lot of home renovation, basement renovation content. Now, guys, I'm seeing the eyebrows raised, and I just want you guys to know so I'm renovating my own basement, and I
watch your Instagram stories, man.
Right. Okay. So this is the thing, Case, that maybe you fall into the same group. People, it's the most exciting thing I've ever done for people that like stuff I do. They're like, comedy, fun. Show us more of the basement. Like, I get so many messages like, this is the most intriguing content I have ever seen generated by you. And the reason it's intriguing is that I am a full-on idiot and I am renovating my full basement by myself. Like, I'm talking electric and drywall and building frames and doing plumbing and doing it really bad and calling a professional. Like, that's what I'm doing down there. In fact, as soon as I get off this call, I'm going down there and painting. So follow me for David C. Ebert at Instagram.
Well, we'll let you get back to that. Sam, if people wanted to find you, where can they find you? What have you got going on?
They can find me here at Another Pass, and I am checking the Discord more, so, like, I guess, there. And other than that, if you have any complaints, and especially if you are Michael Jordan, you can find Case at...
Michael, you can come at me on Twitter at Case Aiken. If you want to come at me on Instagram, you can come at me at Quetzalcoatl5 because I am both a mythology nerd and a Legion of Superheroes nerd. If you want to find the podcast, it's on Twitter at Another Pass. And as Sam said, we've got a Discord for Certain POV. So if you go to certainpov.com, you can find more episodes of this show and all these other shows, but we have a link to our Discord server where you can come engage with us. It's a great time. We recently-ish reorganized everything to be much more categorized by the types of shows we have, and so the content has become much more driven by the topic as opposed to specific shows. So our movie shows are now all engaging in movie conversations all the time. Our comic shows are all engaging in comic book shows all the time. Our book shows are mostly doing book discussions and like what things people want to read and so forth. It's a great time there. So check that out. Also at certainpov.com, you can find tons of other great shows. I'm going to be selfish today, and I'm going to plug one of my shows, which is Men of Steel, which is my Superman and Superman adjacent show that I host with J. Mike Folson. It's a really good time. When this drops, we will have long since done our recap of Invincible Compendium 1, but that's the most recent thing I recorded as of when we're recording this. So that was a good episode, and lots of our stuff has been good. Go check that out. But if you're looking for more episodes of this show, Sam, what do we have up next?
Next time on Another Pass, we'll be talking about Highlander 2, The Quickening. But until then, if you enjoyed this, pass it on.
Thanks for listening to Certain Point of View's Another Pass podcast. Don't miss an episode. Just subscribe and review the show on iTunes. Just go to certainpov.com.
So you made us watch Space Jam.
Yeah, I love that I made you guys Space Jam, and then I emailed you, and I was like, I didn't watch Space Jam.
You're like, so technically I browsed Space Jam.
I watched it. I watched it as much as anyone can watch it.
Yeah.
I know it's as knowable as Space Jam 2 can be to any person.
That's kind of fair. That's why I wasn't that worried when I saw that. I was like, oh, well, yeah, I guess that's fine.
I can't stress enough. It's not like I missed the homework assignment. It's that the homework assignment happened while my kids also didn't care about Space Jam 2.
I think that's actually the most important market research that we can have for this discussion, because I don't know who this movie is for.
That's exactly it, right?
Right.
Because I had friends that were like, oh, well, at least kids like it. And I'm here to report, no.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.